Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, May 16th. Hope everybody's had a great week so far. Today, there is a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot of breaking news. We're going to go over the bombshell of an article that came out yesterday surrounding Caleb Williams, his almost decision to go to the UFL. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on with Brock Purdy and his brand new $53 million a year contract extension, as well as some little nuggets about the Nuggets forcing Game 7 and whether or not the Knicks can survive and advance in Game 6, along with much more. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, May 16th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our first topic here, that having to do with Brock Purdy and the 49ers finally agreeing on a brand new 5-year, $265 million extension. Now, this is something that has been in the works for a long time. Brock Purdy, of course, famously Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, and it has really benefited the 49ers because he's been making the lowest salary you can possibly make, getting slotted into that last draft pick. He wasn't undrafted, but still, he was making by far the least amount of money for any starting quarterback in the NFL. He had led this team to the Super Bowl before, but the 49ers were starting to shed talent, and the going rate was because you have to pay your quarterback. That's the thing that happens in the NFL. You can build this elite team, this super team, this Avengers-level team in the San Francisco 49ers, but if you don't have a quarterback, it's not going to matter. They had Brock Purdy on a rookie contract, which is why rookie contracts are so huge, because you see now that they have had to pay Brock Purdy 5 years, $265 million. They've had to let a lot of talent go. On the offense, they've had to let a bunch of offensive linemen go, as well as Deebo Samuel walk. They've had to let, on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of people go. Dre Greenlaw, the heart and soul of that linebacking core. They've let Hufanga go to the Broncos, the heart and soul of that secondary. They let Charvarius Ward go. Lots of huge names from this San Francisco 49ers defense, no longer a part of the team. Also, they could afford both Brock Purdy and so they could pay George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. Now, 5 years, $265 million works out to $53 million a year, which seems to be the going rate for quarterbacks of this skill level. If I had to give you a list of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, Brock Purdy would be somewhere between 15 and 20. He would be in that range with guys like Tua Tagovailoa, with guys like Jared Goff, a lot of guys in that same sort of pay range that he is currently in. Now, that just seems to be the going rate with a quarterback that I would describe as someone that if you give him the weapons, will win you games. But he is dependent on the team around him as opposed to being able to lift up a worse team. Now, that is the difference. Being a ceiling raiser is someone that's how you get to your elite quarterbacks in the NFL. Being a floor raiser is how you get to where these guys are at right now. Now, $53 million is not chump change by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact of the matter is, Brock Purdy doesn't really deserve that kind of money, right? There are lots of people that deserve $53 million. Or I say there aren't a lot of people that deserve $53 million, I should say. But still, this is something that when we take a look at the future of the NFL, we take a look at where these guys are coming from, where this money is going to, it's going to start to really jumble up to that $50 million range. The okay quarterback that we're taking a chance on, that's in the $40 million. And as the cap continues to grow, as the league continues to expand, we're going to see the $60 million contracts go more than just we see Dak Prescott with that $60 million contract. It's not necessarily a bad move. I know people are going to look at this contract, look at what Brock Purdy has done, and Brock Purdy is already a controversial quarterback in the NFL. He's someone that took over and has done basically nothing but win, but he also gets discounted because he's done it on this San Francisco 49ers team that you've seen very similar success stories from guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, who then turned out to be not the answer, right? We've seen the same kind of success story from Colin Kaepernick, who was very good, but wasn't really an elite level quarterback, from Alex Smith, who again was very good, but was not really an elite level quarterback. We've seen this kind of success level from these Kyle Shanahan quarterbacks before. So it's not really super surprising, but it's hard to just hit after hit after hit. It's not something that is expected of NFL teams. It's the outlier, not the rule. That's why it's so amazing what the Packers have done, and to the same extent, what the 49ers have done, basically having a elite quarterback for the last 30, 40 years at this point is incredibly impressive. Now, Brock Purdy, does he deserve $50 million a year just on his own? No. But when it comes to looking at where the market is for quarterbacks, the fact of the matter is Brock Purdy, there was noise around him getting $70 million. And I've talked about this a bunch, especially when we were talking about paying Jamar Chase from the Bengals side of things. The earlier you pay people, the more of a discount it's going to look like. Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year, $500 million contract. That is $50 million a year. He is now outside of the top 10 for quarterback pays. Jalen Hurts signed a $51 million contract. He is now behind guys like Goff, like Tua, like Brock Purdy. When you pay your quarterbacks, when you pay your guys early, it looks like a deal in the future. So right now, the instant reaction to Brock Purdy being paid $53 million a year over the next 5 seasons, it's one of just, you kind of had to do it. This is not a move that I love. It's not a move that I hate. This is something that I think Brock Purdy very well can play to the level of a $50 million quarterback. If you're counting guys like Jared Goff, if you're counting guys like Tua, if you're counting guys like Trevor Lawrence, he could very much play that same level. Same thing with a guy like Jordan Love. But if you're trying to compare him to these top quarterbacks in the league, like a Jalen Hurts, like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Joe Burrow, some of these guys that are in that same kind of $50 to $55 million price range, he's not going to live up to those expectations. You have to temper your expectations and understand this is just the going rate for quarterbacks nowadays. This is how much it's going to cost if you want a future franchise quarterback. And that's going to be easier and easier to swallow as the cap continues to go up, seemingly historic levels these last couple of seasons. We're just going to have to see how it goes. But I would love to hear your thoughts. I don't think this move is that big of a deal, in all honesty, or it's that big of a travesty, I should say. I think it's something they had to do, and I'm glad they got it done before it dragged out too long into the offseason. But again, I would love to hear what you think about this contract. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the other major story coming out of the NFL. This one surrounding Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, of course, one of the best quarterbacks one of the best prospect quarterbacks we've seen in a very long time, and there were rumors around him potentially not going to the Bears last offseason. I shrugged it off as nothing. A lot of other people did as well. But a new bombshell report from ESPN came out detailing those conversations a little bit more, and it's a lot closer than I ever thought it was. We'll talk about that coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, May 16th. If you're just tuning in, we just finished going over everything that you need to know about the Brock Purdy brand new, hot off the presses, 5-year, $265 million deal coming out to $53 million a year. In this segment, we turn our attention over to the world of basketball. The Nuggets force a Game 7 in a massive win, 119-107, over the Oklahoma City Thunder, the number 1 seed. And the Knicks versus Celtics Game 6 has just tipped off. We're going to talk about all of that in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, May 16th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit of NBA action as the Denver Nuggets have now forced a do-or-die Game 7. The second straight series for this Denver Nuggets squad that goes to 7 games. And if you go back to last playoffs, the third straight series for them where they've gone 7 games. Now, Nikola Jokic and this Nuggets team have historically been pretty good in Game 7. Of course, they lost in Game 7 to the Wolves last season, but they took care of business against the Clippers earlier on. And this is a very interesting matchup to take a look at. But before we get into it, that game 6 that forced this Game 7, the Nuggets really rode a strong third quarter and an unlikely hero. Of course, you still have your usual suspects. Jamal Murray, who was dealing with a sickness all game, 25, 7, and 8. That's exactly what you need from him. Jokic led the Nuggets in scoring with 29, 8, and 14, just 2 assists away from another triple-double. The real thing, though, the hero of this game was Julian Strawther. Julian Strawther, who hasn't played real minutes that matter in a game in over 2 weeks, showed up and had 15 points in 20 minutes tonight, including a run at the end of the third quarter where he outscored the Thunder 10-8 all by himself. He was amazing in this game, and that's not something that you're going to expect in Game 7 again, because this is a Nuggets team that has a lot of ways to score. Michael Porter Jr., who has struggled, had missed 13 straight threes a little bit into this game, started to figure it out down the stretch, finished with 10 points. If he can play like he did down the stretch of that game, hit a couple threes, this Game 7 is going to look a lot different. The other key factor for them in Game 7 is going to be Aaron Gordon. Late in the fourth quarter, after a turnover and a really good defensive play to avoid a breakaway by the Thunder on Alex Caruso, Aaron Gordon got up, grabbed his hamstring late in the fourth quarter, but he is someone that is vital to this team. He already has 2 game-winning shots in this playoff run, 1 in each series, but Aaron Gordon has also been a really underrated three-point shooter this season. He shot nearly 40% from 3 in the regular season, shooting in the mid-30% right now when we're talking about the NBA playoffs. He's also just a really solid defender, energy guy. He gives everything he has, and he is the underrated third piece in this. A lot of people say it's Michael Porter Jr. It's Aaron Gordon in this one. I don't know how they're going to replace Aaron Gordon minutes if he isn't able to go, which there is a chance that he isn't. He needs to be able to go. Otherwise, this Game 7 is just not going to go the way of the Nuggets. On the Thunder side of things, they just kind of were off all night. They missed 12 straight three-pointers in the third and fourth quarter. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a guy that doesn't usually deal with foul trouble, had his fourth foul before halftime. He had 4 fouls before halftime. That was the first time since November of 2022 that he had that many fouls in the first half. He ended up finishing the game. He had 32 points, really efficient as you would expect of Shai, 11 of 16 from the field. But the real thing was that they just couldn't shoot the three. Like I said, they missed 12 straight three-pointers in the second half there. J-Dub needs to have a better offensive outing in Game 7 if they want to win. He was 3 of 16 from the field, and he was 0 of 4 from 3. He had a missed wide-open dunk, and that kind of felt like the game to me. Alex Caruso doing his thing on the defensive end, forced a couple turnovers in the row down the stretch, but this game just wasn't really there for the Thunder. The OKC in that game shot just 27% from behind the arc, and again, those 12 straight missed three-pointers were a huge part of why they weren't in this game. Really, the key for Game 7 is not the star, because you know Jokic is going to play well. You know Shai is going to play well. And very well, they haven't announced the MVP. The MVP might get decided in Game 7 there. The whole series so far, each and every game, has been decided by which team has the best depth performance, whether that be Aaron Gordon or Jamal Murray, whether that be J-Dub or Chet, whether that be, any of the Lou Dort or any of these guys on the Thunder or any of these guys like Julian Strother who stepped up in Game 6. It's whoever's depth pieces have played the best. Those are the ones that have tended to win these games in this series. So I'm not looking at my X factor in Game 7 back in OKC to be Shai or to be Jokic. They need to have good games. They're probably going to have good games. That's just kind of a given right now. What I'm looking at is the rest of the team to show up. And if I'm looking at Game 7 right now, the reason that I will be taking the Thunder in this one is because they have just so much depth. They have so much depth, and I can't imagine another Julian Struthers game. I can't imagine Russell Westbrook really stepping up, because he's been not that great all series long. Maybe he could in Game 7 in front of OKC, one of the greatest Thunder in the history of the franchise, going back for a huge game. Maybe he steps up there, but it's going to be up to those kind of guys. And I think that the Thunder just have too much depth for the Nuggets to handle. And because of that, I'm taking the Thunder in Game 7 on Sunday. But there is one game taking place tonight, that being the game between the Knicks and the Celtics. Game 6 in New York, in the Garden over there, Madison Square Garden. Game 6 has just started. It's just kicked off a couple minutes ago. This is a must-win game, not just for the Celtics, who are on the brink of elimination, but also for the Knicks, right? The Celtics, of course, must win because they lose this game. They get to spend the rest of the summer in Cancun. But for the Knicks, it's a whole nother kind of pressure. It's a mental kind of pressure. This is a kind of pressure that is hard to claw back from, especially if you have to go on the road in Game 7. We've seen them struggle in the regular season against Boston. The Celtics lose Jason Tatum. Derek White shows up. Jaylen Brown shows up. They take care of business in Game 5 back in TD Garden in Boston. If Jason Tatum goes down, and the Celtics win 2 straight games after that, after it seemed like they were just never going to be able to win a tight game in this series, that is so much pressure on the Knicks. The pressure goes off of the Celtics. It becomes a do-or-die game, the same stakes for both of these teams, and it's more on the Knicks to avoid choking a 3-1 lead than it is on the Celtics for trying to come back. The Celtics might have been the favorites heading into this series, but right now it's the Knicks. They need to win 1 out of 3 games. They've already lost 1. Now they just need to win 1 out of 2. This is something that they need to win in the Garden. It would mean so much more if they won this in Madison Square Garden for revenge against the Indiana Pacers, who knocked them out in 7 in the Garden last season. I'm really excited for this game. This game should be amazing, but again, it is a must-win for both teams. I think the Celtics get it done. And that forces a Game 7 on Monday, which I think is going to be the tightest playoff game that we have seen. I know we saw a dunk buzzer beater, but still, I think that game gets even closer than that Nuggets Clippers game in round 1, especially since it's round 2. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think happens in the game tonight? What do you think happens in Game 7 between the Nuggets and the Thunder? I'd love to hear what you think. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we do take a look back at the NFL. There's a couple of big things going on in the NFL, including a bombshell report going on currently about Caleb Williams, how he almost went not to the NFL, but to the UFL. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, May 16th. Hope everybody's had a great week so far. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over everything that you need to know about the NBA. The game from last night, previewing Game 6 between the Knicks and the Celtics tonight. In this segment, we turn our attention back to the NFL. Caleb Williams, one of the most promising quarterback prospects we had seen in a very, very long time, didn't have his greatest first season with the Bears, but his rookie year almost wasn't spent in the NFL at all. We'll talk about that in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, May 16th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into what we need to know about Caleb Williams. A bombshell report coming out of ESPN yesterday afternoon goes into detail about what was happening behind the scenes of Caleb Williams. For those who don't remember, Caleb Williams out of USC, a former Heisman winner, didn't have his greatest season in his finale, his last chance on the college football field. His father wanted the best for him, as most fathers do. And the Bears have been a place where QBs go to die historically, right? They've never had a 4,000-yard passer in the history of the Chicago Bears. A storied franchise, one of the oldest franchises in the NFL, has never had a quarterback that they can truly say is a franchise savior, is someone that can come in and be that difference maker for them. They've always been a defense-first kind of organization, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, but the fact that they've never had a 4,000-yard passer at this point is a little crazy, right? Caleb Williams was prepared to take some insane steps to avoid playing for the Bears, and more specifically, playing for offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. Now, we'll talk a little bit about Shane Waldron first before we get into the steps that he might take, because Shane Waldron came over from the Seattle Seahawks, and Jackson Smith-Njigba famously said very not glowing things about him. He wasn't very excited, or he was very happy, I should say, when Shane Waldron left the Seahawks, right? It was a much better situation for him and that wide receiver room and that offense overall. And we saw the same thing happen in Chicago. He got promoted to be he got fired in the middle of the season. Same thing with the head coach a couple days later, but that was the biggest concern. Now, Caleb Williams, who originally was unsure about wanting to be a part of the Bears, had lawyers look over the CBA, look over the contract, find a way out of it, and the most efficient way that he found out was potentially to play one season in the United Football League. Yes, the Rock's UFL. The UFL that plays spring football. The UFL that is currently going on right now, in case any of you didn't know that. A smaller football league, but it would have allowed him to be an unrestricted free agent in 2025. And in that timeline, we're talking alternate history kind of stuff here, it would have been fascinating to see how the quarterback market would have changed, because Caleb Williams in this year's quarterback market, a quarterback markets whose highlight were Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, a quarterback draft whose highlights were Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Where would these guys have gone? There were people trying to make crazy trades for Matthew Stafford. There was a trade for Geno Smith because the quarterback market in free agency just wasn't there. But in this potential future, where we see Caleb Williams be an unrestricted free agent, he could have been paid in that $50 million range almost immediately. Again, it kind of depends on how it went in the UFL for him. If he had the season like he did with the Bears this year, it probably would have killed his career, and that wouldn't have been good. He still would have been given a chance in the NFL, I believe, but still, he probably would have been better to stay in college if he was going to go to the UFL. Outside of that, this would have been really cool to see, because I think the Giants, the Browns, I think the Jets would have given up an arm, a leg, a body, a soul, anything, you name it, to get Caleb Williams into their organization this offseason. Instead, he's with the Bears. And I don't want to over-report this, because he said that he's going to fix the Bears. He said after a couple meetings that he was excited to go play for the Bears and make them a successful organization. But another big part of that report was that he wanted to play for the Vikings. At the draft combine, he talked to Kevin O'Connell, and he